My parents favored my sister my whole life, then she found out I had $15 million and had a full-blown meltdown at Thanksgiving dinner. Dad couldn't speak. My therapist says writing can be therapeutic, and honestly, I think the internet needs to hear this one. My name is Rebecca, I'm 31 years old, and I've spent most of my life being the invisible daughter. My sister Madison, who's 34, has always been the golden child. From the moment I could form memories, everything revolved around her. Madison was beautiful, Madison was smart, Madison was going places. Me? I was just there. Growing up in suburban Denver, our house was basically a shrine to Madison's achievements. Piano recital programs plastered the refrigerator, her honor roll certificates framed in the hallway, her cheerleading photos prominently displayed on the mantel. Meanwhile, my science fair ribbons got shoved in a drawer, my art projects never made it past the kitchen table, and my academic achievements were met with a casual "that's nice, honey." The favoritism wasn't subtle. When Madison wanted to take expensive dance classes, Mom and Dad found the money immediately. When I asked for art supplies, they told me we needed to watch our spending. Madison got a brand new Honda Civic for her 16th birthday. I got Madison's old bike with a flat tire. Madison's college tuition? Fully paid. Mine? You'll figure it out with scholarships and loans. But here's the thing about being the overlooked child, you develop a different kind of strength. While Madison was busy being perfect and having everything handed to her, I was learning how to hustle. I started babysitting at 12, worked retail through high school, and put myself through community college while working 2 jobs. After community college, I transferred to Colorado State University with a partial scholarship and 3 student jobs. I studied computer science because I was good with numbers and logic, and frankly, it seemed like the most practical path to financial independence. Madison, meanwhile, was pursuing her passion for art history at a prestigious private college, courtesy of Mom and Dad's checkbook. The real turning point came during my junior year. I was exhausted from working constantly just to survive, watching my parents send Madison care packages while I ate ramen for the 4th night in a row. That's when I stumbled into cryptocurrency. My roommate Jake was always talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I thought he was crazy. Then I did some research. I understood the underlying technology, the blockchain concepts made sense to me, and I could see the potential. But more importantly, I could see patterns in the market that reminded me of the statistical analysis I'd been studying. I started small. Really small. I took $200 from my summer job savings and bought Bitcoin when it was around $800. This was back in 2016. But here's the key, I didn't just buy and hold. I studied the market obsessively, learned everything I could about trading, technical analysis, market psychology. When Bitcoin hit $1,200, I sold half and diversified into Ethereum and other altcoins. More importantly, I kept adding money, every spare dollar from my 3 jobs went into crypto. Meanwhile, Madison was posting Instagram photos of her study abroad semester in Italy, funded by Mom and Dad, naturally. The comments were always the same, living your best life. So jealous. Mom would share every single photo with the caption, "My beautiful daughter exploring the world." I kept my crypto investments secret. Not because I was trying to hide anything, but because nobody in my family had ever taken my financial decisions seriously. When I tried to explain my part-time bookkeeping business to them, Dad literally laughed and said, "That's cute, Becca. Maybe you can do Madison's taxes someday." By my senior year, my portfolio was worth about $180,000. Not life-changing money, but enough to pay off my student loans immediately after graduation and have a serious head start on building wealth. I didn't tell anyone. I just quietly paid them off and started investing even more aggressively, now with a real job income to add to my crypto gains. After college, I got a job as a junior developer at a tech startup in Boulder. The pay wasn't great, but I kept my expenses low and invested almost everything. I was still living like a broke college student, studio apartment, used car, thrift store clothes, but my portfolio kept growing. Madison, meanwhile, graduated and moved back home. Her art history degree wasn't exactly opening doors, so Mom and Dad supported her while she figured things out. This figuring out period lasted 2 years and included 3 different unpaid internships at galleries, a brief stint trying to become an influencer, and a lot of expensive networking events that Mom and Dad funded. The cryptocurrency boom of 2017 changed everything for me. My portfolio exploded. Bitcoin hit nearly $20,000, Ethereum soared, and some of the smaller altcoins I'd researched paid off massively. But the real game changer was that I'd been accumulating steadily for over a year, putting in thousands of dollars from my various jobs. By Christmas 2017, I was worth over $1.2 million. I was 25 years old and secretly wealthier than my parents. But I kept quiet. I watched Madison finally get a job at a small gallery making $35,000 a year, which Mom and Dad celebrated like she'd been appointed to the Supreme Court. They threw her a party. When I got promoted to senior developer with a $95,000 salary, they said congratulations over a text message. The pattern continued. Madison got engaged to her boyfriend Derek, a struggling musician who worked part-time at Guitar Center. Mom immediately started planning an elaborate wedding. "We want to give Madison the wedding of her dreams," Mom told me during one of our rare phone calls. "The budget? $60,000. What about when I get married?" I asked. "Oh honey, you're so practical. I'm sure you'll want something simple." That stung, but not as much as it would have years earlier. By then, my portfolio was approaching 7 figures. I diversified beyond crypto into stocks, real estate investment trusts, and even bought a small rental property in Fort Collins. My financial advisor, yes, I had a financial advisor, was amazed at how much wealth I'd accumulated in such a short time. Madison's wedding was indeed elaborate. Held at the Denver Botanic Gardens, professional photographer, live band, open bar, the works. I was the maid of honor, naturally, and got to wear a bridesmaid dress that cost more than my monthly rent. During her speech, Dad talked about how proud he was of Madison for finding her soulmate and building a beautiful life. He mentioned me exactly once, and thank you to Rebecca for being such a supportive sister. The next few years followed the same script. Madison and Derek struggled financially, apparently being a gallery assistant and a part-time musician doesn't pay the bills. Who could have predicted that? Mom and Dad helped with their rent, their car payments, even their groceries sometimes. Meanwhile, I kept climbing. I switched companies twice, each time for significant salary increases. By 2020, I was making $145,000 a year as a senior software architect. My investment portfolio had weathered the COVID crash beautifully because I diversified smartly. I bought my first rental property. I even started angel investing in tech startups. But to my family, I was still just practical Rebecca with her boring tech job. The irony wasn't lost on me. During COVID lockdowns, while Madison posted Instagram stories about being stuck at home with Derek, in the apartment Mom and Dad were helping them afford, I was thriving. Working from home meant lower expenses and more time to research investments. I started a side consulting business, helping small companies optimize their databases. The extra income was nice, but honestly, I just enjoyed the work. My biggest breakthrough came in early 2021. I'd been following this startup called CloudSync. They were developing revolutionary data compression algorithms. The technical details fascinated me, and after analyzing their patents and talking to their CTO at a tech meetup, I was convinced they were onto something huge. I invested $50,000 of my own money in their series a round. 8 months later, Google acquired CloudSync for $2.3 billion. My relatively small investment returned $800,000 overnight. Not the millions I'd initially calculated, but still a massive win that pushed my net worth over the $8 million mark. Did I tell my family? Of course not. By then, I'd learned to keep my wins to myself. Madison was going through what she called her creative crisis. Basically, she'd realized that an art history degree and gallery connections weren't going to make her the next big curator. Mom spent hours on the phone with her, offering emotional support and practical advice about following your passion. When I mentioned that my consulting business was doing well, Mom's response was, "That's nice, dear. Maybe you can help Madison set up a website for her freelance art consulting idea." Madison's freelance art consulting idea lasted exactly 3 months. Apparently, rich people who collect art prefer consultants with more experience than I worked at a gallery for 4 years and have really good taste. But instead of acknowledging that maybe she needed to build more credentials, Madison decided the problem was that people don't appreciate real expertise anymore. During this time, I was quietly building an empire. I bought 2 more rental properties in emerging Denver neighborhoods, invested in 3 more startups, and started learning about options trading. My landlord business alone was generating $8,000 a month in passive income. My day job salary had hit $185,000. My investment portfolio was approaching 8 figures. But here's what really got to me: the complete lack of curiosity about my life. I remember one family barbecue in summer 2021. Madison spent 20 minutes describing her latest project. She was thinking about starting an Etsy shop selling curated vintage finds. Everyone was fascinated. Mom asked detailed questions about her business plan, her target market, her pricing strategy. Then Uncle Bob asked me how work was going. "Really well," I said. "I just bought another rental property, and my consulting business is expanding. Actually, I'm thinking about taking some time off to focus on investing full-time." Dead silence. Then Dad chuckled. "Investing, huh? Like in stocks?" "Stocks, real estate, private equity, cryptocurrency. I've diversified across several asset classes." Madison rolled her eyes. "Listen to you, sounding all Wall Street. What's next, Rebecca? Are you going to start wearing power suits and carrying a briefcase?" Everyone laughed. Even me, because what else was I going to do? But inside, I was screaming. Here I was, describing a level of financial success that most people only dream of, and they were treating it like a cute hobby. That night, I went home and calculated my exact net worth, $8.7 million. $8.7 million, and my family thought I was playing dress up as an investor. The real kicker came a few months later. Madison and Derek decided to try couples therapy because they were struggling with communication issues. Translation: they were fighting about money constantly. Derek wanted to pursue music full-time, Madison wanted him to get a real job, and they couldn't agree on anything financial. Mom called me in tears. "Rebecca, I'm so worried about Madison. She's going through such a hard time. Derek quit his guitar center job to focus on his band, and now they can barely make rent even with our help." "That sounds really stressful," I said carefully. "It is. They're in therapy now, which is good, but it's so expensive. $200 a session, and they want to go twice a month. We're trying to help, but between their rent assistance and now therapy," Mom sighed heavily. "I just wish there was more we could do." I sat there, phone in my hand, trying to process what I was hearing. My parents were stretching their finances to pay for my sister's therapy because her husband quit his job to chase his musical dreams. Meanwhile, I was sitting on nearly $10 million. Part of me, a big part, wanted to help. Not for Madison or Derek, but for Mom and Dad. They were good people who'd gotten caught up in enabling their eldest daughter, and now they were paying the price. It would have been so easy to write a check, to solve their problem with the equivalent of pocket change for me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that helping would just perpetuate the same dynamic. Madison and Derek would learn that someone would always bail them out. Mom and Dad would never learn to set boundaries. And I would become the family ATM, my value measured entirely by my ability to solve everyone else's financial problems. So I didn't offer. I listened sympathetically, made appropriate supportive noises, and kept my bank balance to myself. Besides, at this point I was working with a private wealth advisor who'd help me set up proper tax strategies and trusts. Bringing family into my financial life would have complicated everything I'd built. 3 months later, Madison and Derek got divorced. The divorce was messy, dramatic, and expensive. Derek moved back in with his parents in Fort Collins. Madison moved back in with Mom and Dad. The therapy sessions became individual sessions for Madison, which somehow cost even more. Madison spiraled. She quit her gallery job, claiming the toxic environment was bad for her mental health. She started seeing a life coach in addition to her therapist. She tried yoga teacher training, then decided she wanted to become a personal trainer, then thought maybe she should go back to school for art therapy. Each new direction required startup costs. Yoga certification, $3,000. Personal trainer courses, $2,500. Graduate school applications, $800 in fees alone. Mom and Dad funded all of it. Meanwhile, my portfolio had crossed the $12 million mark. I'd started working with a wealth management firm, exploring tax optimization strategies and considering early retirement. I was 30 years old and financially independent enough to never work again if I chose not to. But I kept working because I loved what I did. I'd been promoted to principal software architect, leading a team of 12 developers on cutting-edge projects. My annual salary was now $190,000, plus bonuses and stock options. I was speaking at tech conferences, mentoring junior developers, and had been approached by 2 different companies trying to recruit me for director-level positions. None of this registered with my family as anything more than Rebecca's computer thing. The contrast became absurd. Madison would call Mom crying about how unfair life was, how hard everything was, how she just needed time to find herself. Mom would spend hours offering comfort and advice, then call me to vent about how worried she was. "I just don't understand why Madison is struggling so much," Mom said during one of these calls. "She's so talented, so smart. Life just seems so much easier for you, Rebecca." Easier for me. I wanted to laugh, but it came out as more of a choke. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Well, you've always been so practical, so level-headed. You found a stable career, you live within your means. Madison's an artist, she feels things more deeply, you know? The world is harder for sensitive people like her." I was quiet for a long moment. "Mom, do you think I don't feel things deeply?" "Oh, honey, of course you do. I just mean you're better at handling stress. You're more like your father that way, steady, reliable. Madison takes after me, more emotional, more passionate. Steady. Reliable. The family workhorse, trudging along without complaint while the passionate, emotional people around me got all the attention and support." That conversation happened on a Tuesday. By Friday, I'd received an offer to join a fintech startup as their CTO. The base salary was $350,000, plus equity that could be worth millions if the company went public. It was the kind of opportunity that most people in tech would kill for. I turned it down. Not because I didn't want it, but because I realized I didn't need it. I had enough money to last several lifetimes. What I needed was to figure out what to do with the rest of my life, and that required some serious thinking. I started working with a career coach. Ironic, since Madison was also working with various coaches, but mine was focused on helping successful people navigate major life transitions rather than helping struggling people find their passion. My coach had been recommended by my wealth advisor, who said most of her high net worth clients eventually needed help figuring out their purpose beyond accumulating money. Through these sessions, I realized something important. I'd been living my entire life in reaction to my family. Working hard to prove my worth, accumulating wealth to feel secure, achieving success to gain recognition. But none of it had gotten me what I really wanted, which was simply to be seen and valued for who I was. My coach suggested I try setting some boundaries, maybe being more open about my accomplishments. Your family can't celebrate your success if they don't know about it, she pointed out. She was right, but she was also wrong. The few times I tried to share good news, promotions, salary increases, investment wins, my family had either minimized them or redirected attention back to Madison's latest crisis. They didn't want to know about my success because it complicated their narrative. In their story, Madison was the star struggling against an unfair world, and I was the stable supporting character who didn't need much attention or support. My success threatened that story, so they unconsciously discouraged me from sharing it. This insight was both liberating and devastating. Liberating because it meant their lack of interest wasn't really about me, it was about their need to maintain a certain family dynamic. Devastating because it meant changing that dynamic would require them to fundamentally rethink their understanding of all of us. I decided to test this theory one more time. It was Christmas 2023, and I just closed on my second rental property, a beautiful townhouse in Capitol Hill that I'd bought as an investment but was considering keeping as a primary residence. I bought a house, I announced during Christmas dinner. Everyone looked up with mild interest. That's great, honey, Mom said. Where? Capitol Hill. It's a 3-bedroom townhouse with a rooftop deck and mountain views. How nice, Dad said. Good investment? Well, I paid cash, so no mortgage payments. The rental income should be about $2,800 a month, and the area's appreciating rapidly. Madison frowned. You paid cash? How much did it cost? $485,000. The silence that followed was different from their usual disinterest. This was confused silence. $485,000? Mom repeated slowly. In cash? Yes. How? Dad started, then stopped. How did you save that much money? Finally, they were asking the right question. I've been investing for years, I said. Cryptocurrency, stocks, real estate. I've done well. How well? Madison asked, and there was something sharp in her voice. I looked around the table at their faces, confused, curious, maybe slightly suspicious. This was it. This was my chance to tell them everything, to finally share the magnitude of what I'd accomplished. Well enough, I said carefully, that I could retire tomorrow if I wanted to. That should have been a moment of family celebration. Their practical, steady daughter had achieved financial independence before age 30. She'd built wealth through smart decisions and hard work. She was successful beyond their wildest dreams. Instead, Madison looked annoyed. Must be nice to have that kind of luxury, she said. Some of us are trying to find meaningful work, not just chasing money. And there it was. Even when confronted with my success, they found a way to diminish it. I wasn't successful, I was just shallow enough to chase money instead of meaning. I didn't tell them about the other $11.5 million that night. Or about the consulting business, or the angel investments, or the fact that my chasing money had made me wealthier than everyone else at that table combined. Instead, I smiled and said, yeah, I've been pretty lucky with my investments. Lucky? As if 8 years of research, risk-taking, and disciplined saving were just luck. That was the moment I truly accepted that they would never see me the way I needed them to. And more importantly, I realized I didn't need them to anymore. The next few months brought a strange sense of peace. I stopped trying to impress them, stopped hoping for recognition, stopped measuring my worth by their approval. I focused on my work, my investments, my actual friends, people who knew about my success and celebrated it, people who asked thoughtful questions about my life and actually listened to the answers. I started dating seriously for the first time in years. It's funny, when you stop desperately needing validation from one source, you become more attractive to other sources. I met James through a tech networking event. He was a successful entrepreneur himself, had sold his previous company for 8 figures, and understood both the challenges and rewards of building wealth young. Our first conversation lasted 4 hours. He asked about my investment philosophy, my career goals, my thoughts on work-life balance. He was genuinely interested in my mind, my opinions, my experiences. It was intoxicating to be seen so clearly by someone. We'd been dating for 6 months when the phone call came about Madison needing help with her house down payment. 6 months of being in a relationship with someone who valued my intelligence, celebrated my success, and saw me as an equal partner. 6 months of what a healthy relationship actually felt like. So when Mom asked me to loan Madison money, and I said I couldn't afford it, I wasn't lying. I couldn't afford to go back to being the family ATM. I couldn't afford to enable dysfunction that had already cost me decades of feeling invisible. Plus, my wealth advisor had been very clear about keeping family finances separate to avoid exactly these kinds of complications. By the time Thanksgiving 2024 rolled around, my net worth had grown to just over $15 million. James and I had been talking about moving in together, maybe starting our own company. I was considering leaving my corporate job to focus full-time on investing in entrepreneurship. I was happy. Genuinely, independently happy, in a way I'd never been before. But I was also angry. Angrier than I'd realized, angrier than I'd admitted to myself. 29 years of being overlooked, dismissed, and taken for granted had left a mark. And that anger was about to come out in the most spectacular way possible. The breaking point started building last summer. Madison and Derek decided they wanted to buy a house. Not just any house, a $400,000 house in a trendy Denver neighborhood. They had no savings, massive credit card debt, and their combined income was maybe $60,000. But Madison wanted that house. Mom called me in July. "Rebecca, honey, we're hoping you might be able to help Madison and Derek with their down payment." I almost laughed. "Help them how?" "Well, you're doing well with your computer job, and you're so good with money. Maybe you could loan them $20,000 or $30,000? We'd all be so grateful." My computer job. Like I was fixing printers at an office supply store. "I'll think about it," I said. I did think about it. I thought about how they'd never supported my education, never celebrated my achievements, never even asked how I was doing financially. I thought about how they assumed I'd just hand over my hard-earned money to fund Madison's latest whim. By this point, my net worth had crossed $12 million. $12 million. I owned 4 rental properties, had a diversified investment portfolio, and enough liquid assets to buy Madison's dream house with cash and not even notice the expense. But they didn't know that. And I decided they didn't deserve to know that. "I can't afford to help with the down payment," I told Mom when she called back. "I've got my own financial goals to worry about." The disappointment in her voice was palpable. "Oh. Well, I suppose we understand. We know you're not in the same position as Madison." Not in the same position as Madison. Madison, who was 32 and had never paid her own rent. They ended up giving Madison and Derek the down payment themselves. Mom mentioned they dipped into their retirement savings, but family comes first. The implication was clear: I wasn't family enough to sacrifice for. This brings us to Thanksgiving 2024. 3 weeks ago. I'd been dreading it for months. The annual gathering at Mom and Dad's house in Littleton, where Madison would be the center of attention and I'd sit quietly in the corner, fielding occasional questions about whether I was seeing anyone special and how's the computer work going. But this year felt different. Maybe it was turning 29 and realizing I'd spent almost 3 decades accepting crumbs from my own family. Maybe it was having more money than I knew what to do with while watching them struggle to help Madison. Or maybe I was just tired of being invisible. I drove up from Boulder in my Honda Civic. Yes, I was worth over $12 million and still driving a 2018 Honda Civic. Old habits die hard, and honestly, I liked being underestimated. The usual crowd was there: Mom, Dad, Madison, Derek, my Aunt Susan and Uncle Bob, and their twins Jake and Emma, who were home from college. The house smelled like turkey and disappointment, just like every other Thanksgiving. Madison looked great, as always. She'd gotten her hair done professionally and was wearing a new dress that probably cost more than most people's car payments. Derek was in his usual uniform of ripped jeans and a flannel shirt, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Dinner conversation followed the predictable script. Madison talked about her job at the gallery, how she was really making a difference in the art community. Derek mentioned his band's upcoming gig at some dive bar. Mom and Dad hung on every word like they were receiving wisdom from prophets. "What about you, Rebecca?" Uncle Bob asked, clearly trying to include me. "How's work going?" "It's going well," I said. "I got another promotion recently. Senior principal architect now." "That sounds very technical," Mom said with a polite smile. "I'm sure it's challenging." Madison jumped in. "Rebecca's always been good with computers. Remember when we were kids and she'd fix Dad's laptop?" Everyone chuckled. "Rebecca, the family tech support. How charming." That's when Jake, my 20-year-old cousin, asked the question that changed everything. "Aunt Rebecca, are you investing in crypto at all? My finance professor says it's the future." I nearly choked on my turkey. Here was this kid, asking about something I'd been doing successfully for 8 years, while my family had never shown the slightest interest in my financial life. "I dabble a little," I said carefully. "That's so cool. I bought some Bitcoin with my part-time job money. Only like $500, but still. Have you made any good returns? The table went quiet. Everyone was suddenly looking at me. Madison had a slightly patronizing smile, like she was humoring a child talking about their lemonade stand. And something inside me just snapped. Maybe it was Jake's genuine interest. Maybe it was seeing Madison's condescending expression. Maybe it was 29 years of being treated like the family afterthought. But I decided, in that moment, that I was done being invisible. Actually, I said, setting down my fork, I've done pretty well with cryptocurrency. And other investments. That's nice, dear, Mom said absently, already turning her attention back to Madison. I mean really well, I continued. Like, well enough that I probably don't need to work anymore if I don't want to. That got their attention. Dad looked up from his mashed potatoes. Madison's smile faltered slightly. How well is really well? Derek asked, suddenly interested. I looked around the table. These people who'd ignored me, dismissed me, treated me like an afterthought for 3 decades. They were all staring now. Well, I said slowly, as of this morning, my portfolio is worth about $15 million. You know that moment in movies where everything goes silent? Where the music stops and everyone freezes. That's exactly what happened. Uncle Bob's fork was halfway to his mouth. Emma was mid-chew. Mom's hand was suspended over the gravy bowl. Dad was the first to break the silence. 15. What? $1 million, I repeated calmly. $15 million. Madison started laughing. Not a happy laugh, a sharp, hysterical laugh. Right, she said. Very funny, Rebecca. $15 million from your computer job. Not from my job, I said. From investing. I started with cryptocurrency in college and diversified from there. Real estate, stocks, private equity. I own 4 rental properties and have investments in 12 different startups. The laughter died on Madison's lips. She was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. You're serious, she whispered. Dead serious. Mom found her voice first. Rebecca, honey, that's wonderful. Why didn't you ever tell us? I looked at her steadily. When would I have told you? When you were paying for Madison's college while I worked 3 jobs. When you were funding her wedding while asking me to contribute to my own bridesmaid dress. When you asked me to loan her money for a house down payment because I'm good with money. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Madison was turning red. Wait. You have $15 million, and when I needed help with the house, you said you couldn't afford it. I said I couldn't afford to help you. There's a difference. What difference? Madison screamed, jumping up from her chair. You let Mom and Dad drain their retirement savings when you could have written a check without blinking. Why would I do that? I asked calmly. You've never done anything for me. I'm your sister. Are you? Because for 29 years, I felt more like a distant relative you occasionally remember exists. Madison was now pacing behind her chair, her face getting redder by the second. This is insane. You're insane. $15 million? How is that even possible? You drive a Honda. You live in that tiny apartment. I like my Honda. And I like my apartment. Just because I have money doesn't mean I need to waste it. Dad finally found his voice, but it came out as a croak. 15 million? Give or take a few $100,000, I said. The market fluctuates. Madison whirled on our parents. Did you know about this? Did you know she was secretly rich while watching you guys struggle to help us? We didn't struggle, Mom started. You took money out of your 401k. Madison shrieked. You said you might have to delay retirement. And she was sitting on $15 million. Uncle Bob cleared his throat. Maybe we should. No. Madison spun toward me again. This is unbelievable. What kind of person does this? What kind of person watches their family sacrifice while sitting on a fortune? I stood up slowly. I'd been calm up to this point, but something in Madison's tone triggered every ounce of resentment I've been swallowing for 3 decades. The kind of person who learned that family only cares about you when you're useful, I said quietly. The kind of person who worked her ass off for everything she has while watching her sister get handed a perfect life on a silver platter. Perfect life? Madison's voice went up another octave. Perfect life? Do you know how hard it's been? Do you know what it's like trying to make it as an artist in this economy? Do you know what it's like putting yourself through college while your parents fund your sister's dream vacation to Italy? I shot back. Do you know what it's like watching your achievements get ignored while every mundane thing your sister does gets celebrated like a national holiday? Girls, please, Dad started. No, Dad, I said, my voice getting louder. I'm done being quiet. I'm done pretending it doesn't matter that you've treated me like a second-class citizen my entire life. Madison wants to know what kind of person I am? I'm the kind of person who learned that the only person I can count on is myself. Madison was crying now, but they were angry tears. You're selfish. You're cold. How can you sit there and act like you're the victim when you've been lying to us for years? I never lied. I just didn't volunteer information that you never bothered to ask for. When has anyone in this family ever asked how I'm really doing? When has anyone ever been curious about my life beyond whether I can fix their computer or loan money to your husband? That's not fair. Mom interjected, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? I turned to face her. Mom, what's the name of my company? She opened her mouth, then closed it. What's my exact job title? What neighborhood do I live in? When was the last time you visited my apartment? Silence. What about my hobbies? My friends? The volunteer work I do? The coding boot camp I taught at for underserved kids? Do you know about any of that? More silence. Madison slammed her hand on the table. This isn't about us not knowing your life story. This is about you having millions of dollars and letting your family struggle. Your family struggled? I laughed bitterly. Madison, you've never paid rent without help. You've never bought your own car. You didn't pay for college, your wedding, or your house down payment. In what universe is that struggling? We work hard. You work part-time at a gallery. Derek plays guitar at coffee shops. I've been working full-time since I was 16. Derek, who'd been silent through most of this, suddenly spoke up. Maybe if you told us about the money, we could have made different choices. I stared at him. What different choices? The choice to ask me for money instead of asking my parents? The choice to treat me like a human being instead of an ATM? That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. All of you. You're not upset that I didn't tell you about the money. You're upset that you didn't get to spend it. Madison was full on sobbing now. I can't believe you're my sister. I can't believe you could be so cruel. Cruel? I felt something break inside me. Cruel is watching your parents empty their retirement savings while you have more money than you know what to do with? You want to know what's cruel, Madison? Cruel is spending your entire childhood being treated like you don't matter. Cruel is watching your sister get everything handed to her while you fight for scraps. Cruel is being asked to loan money to someone who's never once asked how you're doing. I grabbed my purse from the counter. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. I earned every penny of that money. I took risks, I made sacrifices, I worked when I was exhausted and studied when I wanted to sleep. And I did it all without any help from anyone in this room. So forgive me if I don't feel obligated to share the rewards with people who never shared in the struggle. I headed toward the door. Rebecca, wait, Dad called out. His voice was weak, defeated. I turned back. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. His face was pale, and his hands were trembling slightly. We. He couldn't seem to form words. What, Dad? What did you want to say? That you're proud of me? That you're sorry? That you wish you'd been different? He just stared at me, mouth opening and closing like a fish. That's what I thought. I walked out, leaving behind the sound of Madison's sobs and the heavy silence of a family that had just imploded. The drive back to Boulder was surreal. I kept expecting to feel guilty, or sad, or something. Instead, I felt light. Like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't even realize was there. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, my phone has been buzzing constantly. Mom has called 47 times. I counted. Her voicemails started apologetic, then became pleading, and now alternate between angry and desperate. The latest one, Rebecca, honey, please call me back. We need to talk about this. Madison is beside herself. We just want to understand. Dad has sent exactly 3 text messages. We should talk. I'm sorry. Please don't shut us out. Madison. Oh boy, Madison. She's called, texted, shown up at my apartment building, security wouldn't let her up, and even tried to contact me through LinkedIn. Her messages have run the gamut from rage to bargaining to what I think might be genuine remorse. The most recent text, from yesterday, Becca, I know I messed up. I know we all messed up. But you're my sister. That has to count for something. Please. I'm sorry. Uncle Bob called once to say he thought I was brave for standing up for yourself, but that maybe I should consider forgiving them. Aunt Susan sent a card that said family is everything with a note inside that said money isn't everything, but family is. Love you. And Derek? Derek sent me a friend request on Facebook. I declined it. The thing is, I don't know what they want from me now. An apology? Forgiveness? Access to my bank account? All of the above? I've been thinking about it a lot. Okay, I've been obsessing about it. My therapist says that's normal, that when you spend your whole life in a dysfunctional dynamic, breaking free can feel both liberating and terrifying. She's right about the terrifying part. These are the only family I've ever known. Growing up, I dreamed about the day they'd finally see me, really see me, and appreciate who I am. But I'd imagined it happening because of something I accomplished, not because of money I accumulated. Part of me wonders if I should have handled it differently. Maybe I could have told them about the money gradually, found a way to help them understand. Maybe I could have been more compassionate about their shock. But then I remember Madison's face when she realized I could have helped her but chose not to. Not disappointment or hurt, fury. Pure, entitled fury. She wasn't upset that I'd hidden something from her, she was upset that she'd missed out on something she felt she deserved. And that tells me everything I need to know. The truth is, I don't miss them. I miss the idea of them, the family I wish I'd had, the parents who would have been proud of my success regardless of the dollar amount, the sister who would have celebrated my achievements instead of feeling threatened by them. But the actual family I had? The one that made me feel invisible for 29 years? I don't miss that at all. I've been spending more time with friends, dating a little, volunteering more. Last weekend, I drove up to Fort Collins to check on my rental properties and ended up having coffee with one of my tenants, a single mom named Sarah who's going back to school for nursing. She told me about her struggles, her dreams, her kids. We talked for 2 hours, and when I left, I realized that this stranger had asked me more genuine questions about my life than my own family had in years. That's when I knew I'd made the right choice at Thanksgiving. I'm not saying I'll never reconcile with my family. Maybe someday, when they've had time to process everything and figure out how to have a relationship with me that isn't based on what I can do for them, we can try again. But it won't be the same. It can't be. The illusion that they cared about me for me has been shattered. I know now that their love came with conditions I was never told about, conditions I could never have met because I was never supposed to be the successful one. Madison was supposed to be the star. I was supposed to be the supporting character. The fact that I'd written my own story, created my own success, built my own empire, that wasn't just surprising to them. It was threatening. And maybe that's the saddest part of all. They're not happy that I succeeded. They're not proud that their daughter built a multi-million-dollar fortune from nothing. They're angry that I did it without them, hurt that I didn't share it with them, and resentful that it changes the family narrative they'd constructed. As I'm writing this, my phone is buzzing with another call from Mom. I'm not going to answer it. Not because I'm trying to punish her, but because I finally understand something that took me 29 years to learn. I don't need their approval anymore. I don't need their attention or their validation or their love. I spent so many years trying to earn something that was never mine to earn, trying to fix something that was never mine to fix. I have $15 million in assets, but more importantly, I have something much more valuable. I have my self-respect. I have the knowledge that everything I've achieved, I achieved on my own. I have the freedom to build relationships with people who actually care about me as a person, not as a source of financial support or technical assistance. And for the first time in my life, I have the power to walk away from people who don't value me. That's worth more than all the money in the world. Although, I'll be honest, the money doesn't hurt. Update, I just got a text from Jake, my cousin. It says, Aunt Rebecca, I just want you to know that what you've accomplished is incredible, and I'm sorry about how everyone reacted. If you ever want to teach me about investing, I'd love to learn. No pressure though. Just thought you should know that at least one person in the family thinks you're awesome. Maybe there's hope for the next generation after all.